tell everyone, let me just say right now that I am Michelle M. Trey Hollis with Vision Board Music and Vision for the Soul. And I am so excited to be just now meeting Ernie Boxall and learning all about his storytelling capabilities. Now, this is what is powerful and why I wanted to record this section of our meeting and share it with you, because he is awesome and amazing. And he speaks on the value of telling your story and doing it well. And we just were having a conversation about the value of understanding and practicing your story. So Ernie, why don't you just let everyone know who you are and finish letting me know about what actually if you don't mind, a little bit starting from backing up a little bit and explaining who you are and what you do. I think I love the way that you do that. So authentic.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for the opportunity. I am Ernie Boxall. I am a storyteller. And that means that I do tell stories. I tell my story. I tell legends and heroes, but I also help people tell their story before somebody else tells it for them. And what I mean by that, particularly now, is that we're not meeting face to face. So we don't know what other people are saying about us. Wow. So I think it's important that we go out over Zoom and we start to tell our own story. My story began when my father, for the first time, drank 3 pints of beer, started to feel giddy, walked outside of a pub and knocked a woman over. That woman was my mother. Now you just imagine if my father had only had 2 pints instead of 3. What if he'd have gone to the toilet before he walked out?
Wow.
I wouldn't be here.
Just those little things.
That's it.
The details.
So, when I was growing up in the 50s, my family were not allowed to talk at the dinner table at all. I couldn't talk after dinner because my father had done a long shift at work. I couldn't talk at night because my brother was 4 years younger and we had nothing to say. I kept being told to shut up at school, and in the factory nobody could hear me. My first speaking session was as best man to a bride and groom. The bride's father was the chairman of the local chamber of trade. So that first speaking session was to 140 business owners and their partners with champagne and silk curtains. I learned then that I had the ability to speak to all levels of people, from the top business owners right down to the people in the street. And in fact, if I could just say that that gave me the ability to become a soccer coach, where I was coaching players who were much, much better than me, but I had the ability to get them to do what I wanted.
Okay.
And I also became a supply teacher with no teacher training, because the school said I have the ability to get the lower streams to do at least a little bit of work, whereas the teachers that came in were unable to get them really to have any discipline at all. And so it's this ability to tell a story that has carried me to where I am now.
That is phenomenal. So what kind of story, why would someone call Ernie Boxall, and what kind of stories do you tell? What types of settings do you usually tell your stories?
Would it be okay if you joined in on this, Michelle?
Okay. Oh, yes.
I run a channel called No Story Stagnates, where I interview business owners and people of interest. And if we were doing it now, I would say, Michelle, will you tell everybody who you are, where you are, what you do? And you do that. And then I'd say, Michelle, do you know how your mother and father met for the first time?
Yes.
Would you mind telling us?
I do. I mean, I don't mind, and I will. my mother and father met while they were in the military.
Oh,
They both were in the military, and apparently there was some guy that was harassing my mom and really just was very pushy, trying to ask my mom out. And my dad was a friend of that guy.
yeah.
So my dad was always trying to help out, you know, trying to tell him to leave her alone. Well, my mom thought he was pretty cute. And, and so and so they, you know, so they had a crush on each other, but apparently my mom left that where she was stationed and went somewhere else. And my dad went through the trouble of getting stationed where she was so that he could
Wonderful.
find her. And that was the match made in heaven, I guess, at the time. My dad turned out to be quite the ladies' man. So they didn't, they later on in life, they weren't together, but I always found that to be so endearing when I found that out later, this whole story. Like, wow, I don't think he's ever since ever went that great of lengths to be with to be with someone. So it made me feel like that's pretty special for my mom.
Absolutely. And so I would say, Michelle, that you know your story from before you were born. And now,
yes, I like that.
is there a story from year 1 to year 10 that straight off the top of your head you could think now that made a real impression on
A story from year 1 to year 10?
you? Yeah.
From what,
when
from
you're
when
1-year-old to 10-year-old.
Yes. Let's see. Well, yeah, I got my finger slammed in the door. That's the first thing that comes up.
Great. What lesson did it teach you?
That it let me know that I was greedy because I was following my uncle for pizza and he slammed the door on my finger. No, he slammed it on my finger. Didn't really change anything.
Yes.
But that was when I first discovered that I love to eat.
There you go. And what we do then, Michelle, is I'd start to ask you for stories between 11 and 20, 21 and 30, 31 and 40. And I mean, you're obviously only 38, so we wouldn't go any farther.
You're almost exactly right.
Yep.
39.
There you go.
So from 11 to 30, it would definitely be the rave because I was a big raver. And then from 11 to 20. Yeah. And then from 20 to 30, it would be beginning my professional career.
Yes.
And then now would be the story to tell.
At the end,
I'm on the air with Ernie Boxall.
There you go. And what I'd say at the end of our interview, Michelle, is that's your story. All you've got to do is really to go back, transcribe everything that you've said. You've got a book. That's your story. And I would put it up on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, so that story will never stagnate. You can always go back in and add to it.
Wow, that's beautiful. And that goes so much with, we here at Vision Board Music, which is my company, it's our belief that every voice gets to be heard and every purpose fulfilled. Yes. So that goes really perfect with the story doesn't stagnate, right?
That's right.
I love that.
I suppose the other thing I could do is 1 week, if you could remember 1 week before you were doing what you're doing now, what were you doing 1 week before you started the job you're doing now?
Before I started my business?
Yeah.
1 week before, I was heartbroken.
Okay.
I was heartbroken, and I decided that I wasn't going to drink or do drugs anymore. And I was heartbroken. And so I ended up writing a grant for artistic development for this idea that I had to help people to learn how to quiet their mind, reflect and heal, and then hustle.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And so, but there again, that's how your story started from before it started.
Love it.
And then we start to talk about what happened in the first year, the second year, the third year. But as we did speak, I also I tell kiddie stories. I tell the story of the fox and the mice and the fox and the turkey and the fox and the chickens. But the point is, I've actually listened to stories called Coyote and the Mice, Coyote and the Chicken. But our kids over here wouldn't know what a coyote is. So I've changed
Okay.
it to the fox.
Okay.
And then in the end, I play music. And that's the story of Ernie Boxall.
Well, thank you so much. Wow. How can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn as Ernie Boxall, Facebook as Ernie Boxall, and YouTube as Ernie.Boxall.
Okay, awesome. And then they can learn how to get into your world through there, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes of our meeting just to introduce yourself to people, because I love to share. I love to share great people with great energy that can be gratefully helpful. And I love that. So thank you so much. And we will, guys, we'll see you later.